Imagine waking up one day to discover you've been married off to your fiancé's father without your knowledge. Now imagine that same father turned out to be your biological dad. And to make it even more insane, you're pregnant, but not with his child. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Before we dive into today's absolutely wild story, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below telling me what you think is going to happen. Laura Russell stood in a luxurious bridal suite, staring at the white wedding gown laid out on the bed before her. 3 days. She'd been locked in this mansion for 3 days. No phone, no communication with the outside world, no explanation for why her fiancé Brian had suddenly turned cold and distant, or why his father Alex Rutherford's men had kidnapped her from her own home. The door opened. 2 stern-faced women in black uniforms entered. "It's time to get dressed, Miss Russell," one said. Not a request, a command. "Time for what?" Laura's voice was hoarse from crying. "Where's Brian? I want to see Brian. What's happening? Why am I being held here?" "Just put on the dress," the other woman said, already moving toward her with the gown. Laura tried to resist, but what was the point? She was outnumbered, exhausted, and completely powerless. Over the past 72 hours, she'd screamed herself hoarse, pounded on locked doors until her fists were bruised, begged guards who stood like statues outside her room. Nothing had worked. Maybe if she cooperated, she'd finally get answers. Maybe Brian was waiting somewhere to explain this nightmare. Maybe this was all some terrible misunderstanding that would be cleared up once she saw him. The women dressed her like a doll. The gown was exquisite, ivory silk with delicate lace, designer craftsmanship, probably worth more than most people's cars. It fit perfectly, as if someone had known her exact measurements. That thought sent ice through her veins. How long had this been planned? They did her hair in an elegant updo, applied makeup that made her look radiant despite the terror in her eyes, fastened a pearl necklace around her throat that felt like a noose. "Beautiful," one woman murmured, stepping back to admire their work. Laura looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked like a bride, like someone happy and excited about her future. She'd never felt more trapped in her life. "Come, it's time." They led her down a grand staircase into the main hall of the Rutherford estate. Laura's heart pounded as she took in her surroundings. This wasn't her family's mansion. This was Alex Rutherford's home, Brian's father's territory. A man in a suit approached carrying an elegant leather portfolio. "Miss Russell, we need you to sign some documents before the ceremony," he said with a practiced smile. "Just formalities, standard paperwork." "What ceremony?" Laura's voice cracked. "What documents? I'm not signing anything until someone tells me what's going on." "It's just wedding paperwork," he said smoothly, opening the portfolio to reveal several pages of dense legal text. "Sign here, here and here, initial here." "Wedding paperwork for what wedding?" Laura demanded, but her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen they pressed into her fingers. "Your wedding, Miss Russell. Now please, everyone's waiting. Just sign." Laura's mind spun. Her wedding to Brian? Was that what this was? Had Brian planned some elaborate surprise ceremony? It didn't make sense. Why kidnap her? Why lock her up for 3 days? Why refuse to let her see him or talk to him? But what choice did she have? With trembling hands, Laura signed where they indicated. Each signature felt like sealing her own fate, but the alternative was what? Being locked in that room forever? Excellent. Now, if you'll come this way. They led her through double doors into a room that had been transformed into a makeshift chapel. White roses everywhere, candles flickering, soft music playing, and people. At least 24 people Laura didn't recognize, all dressed formally, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity. At the front of the room stood an officiant in formal robes. And next to him, Laura's blood turned to ice. Alex Rutherford, not Brian, not her fiancé, not the man she loved. Brian's father stood at the altar in an impeccable black tuxedo, his silver-threaded hair perfectly styled, his piercing blue eyes locked on her as she was led down the makeshift aisle. "No," the word escaped Laura's lips as a whisper. Then louder. "No, no, no, no. What is this? Where's Brian? Brian!" She tried to turn, to run, but the women gripped her arms firmly, pushed her forward step by step toward the altar. toward Alex Rutherford, who watched her approach with an expression that was impossible to read. "Let me go! This is insane! I'm engaged to Brian! Where is he? Brian!" But Brian didn't appear. The doors remained closed. No one came to rescue her. They brought her to stand beside Alex at the altar. Laura was hyperventilating now, her vision tunneling, the room spinning around her. "Ladies and gentlemen," the officiant began, his voice calm and professional, as if this were a normal wedding and not a kidnapping. "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Laura Russell and Alexander Rutherford in holy matrimony." "I don't consent to this." Laura's voice was shrill with panic. "This isn't legal. You can't force someone to marry." "You already signed the marriage license," Alex said quietly beside her. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "Those documents you signed, they were legal and binding. This ceremony is just a formality." Laura's knees nearly gave out. The papers, the signatures. They'd tricked her into signing her own marriage certificate. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face, ruining the carefully applied makeup. "Why are you doing this?" Alex's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. He just stared straight ahead as the officiant continued reading vows that Laura didn't speak. Promises she didn't make. "Do you, Alexander Rutherford, take Laura Russell to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Alex said firmly. "And do you, Laura Russell, take Alexander Rutherford to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "No, I don't. I don't consent to any of this. This is kidnapping. This is..." "The bride consents," someone said from the audience. Laura whipped around to see a lawyer she vaguely recognized from her father's funeral. "The marriage license has been properly executed with her signature. The ceremony may continue." "By the power vested in me," the officiant said quickly, as if rushing to finish before Laura could protest further, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Alex turned to Laura. For a moment, their eyes met. She saw something flicker in his expression. Regret, guilt, something she couldn't name. He leaned forward. Laura turned her face away sharply. "Don't you dare touch me." Alex straightened without kissing her. "It's done," he said quietly. "You're my wife now, Laura, legally and binding. Fighting it won't change that." "I'll get it annulled," Laura spat through her tears. "I'll go to the police. I'll tell everyone you kidnapped me and forced me into this." "You'll find that difficult." Alex's voice was still gentle, which somehow made it worse. "You signed the documents willingly in front of witnesses. The ceremony was legal. And your stepmother, Mandy, was the one who gave consent on your behalf as your legal guardian until you turned 25. Laura's world tilted violently. "Mandy? What does Mandy have to do with this?" But Alex was already turning away, signaling to his staff. "Take her back to her rooms. Make sure she has everything she needs. And someone get her out of that dress before she ruins it." "No, you can't just..." "Let me go! Let me go!" But the women were already gripping her arms again, already pulling her from the room. Laura fought like a wild animal, screaming and kicking, but it was useless. They were too strong, too many. As they dragged her back up the stairs, Laura caught a glimpse of someone standing in a shadowed alcove watching the whole scene. Brian, her fiancé. The man she loved. The man she was supposed to marry. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable, and did absolutely nothing as she was dragged away. "Brian!" Laura screamed. "Brian, help me! Please! How could you do this? How could you let them?" He turned and walked away before she could finish. The women locked her back in the bridal suite, stripped off the wedding gown, left her in a silk robe, sobbing on the floor, legally married to a man 3 decades her senior, who she barely knew. Laura Russell had become Laura Rutherford, and she had no idea why. Drop a comment if you're already hooked. This story is about to get so much crazier. 3 days earlier, to understand how Laura ended up drugged, kidnapped, and forced into marriage, we need to rewind 3 days. 3 days before the nightmare wedding, Laura was living what she thought was her normal life. Grieving her father, planning her future wedding to Brian, and trying to navigate the increasingly strange behaviour of her stepmother, Mandy. 6 months had passed since Clinton Russell's death. 6 months since the will reading that left everything to Laura, and barely anything to Mandy. 6 months of growing tension and suspicious activity that Laura couldn't quite put her finger on. Mandy was up to something. Laura was sure of it. Her stepmother had become secretive, taking hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when Laura entered rooms, meeting with lawyers and accountants at odd hours, disappearing for days at a time without explanation. Laura had tried to brush it off as grief or Mandy's way of coping with losing Clinton, but her instincts screamed that something was wrong. Then things got even stranger with Brian. Her fiancé had started acting cold, distant. He'd cancel plans at the last minute, avoid her calls, give one-word answers when they did speak. The warmth in his brown eyes had been replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like guilt? Laura confronted him one afternoon at his penthouse apartment. "Brian, what's going on with you?" she demanded, standing in his living room with her arms crossed. "You've been acting weird for weeks. Are you having second thoughts about the wedding? About us?" Brian's jaw tightened. He looked at her for a long moment, and Laura could have sworn she saw pain flash across his face. "There are things happening that you don't understand," he said finally. "Things I can't explain right now." "Then men make me understand! We're supposed to get married in 2 months! I deserve to know if something's wrong!" "Laura," Brian ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Just trust me. Please. I need you to trust that everything I'm doing is for a reason. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now." Laura left his apartment feeling more confused and hurt than ever. The man she loved was keeping secrets from her, and she had no idea why. Then came the photos. Laura was having coffee with an old friend from college when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it and nearly dropped her phone. It was a photo of her, in bed, with a man. Except it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Laura stared at the image in horror. It showed her apparently sleeping with someone, intimate and compromising, but she had absolutely no memory of it happening because it hadn't happened. The photo was fake. It had to be. Photoshopped. AI generated. Something. But it looked devastatingly real. More photos followed, different angles, different positions. All of them showing Laura in compromising situations with a man whose face was just blurred enough that she couldn't identify him. Her phone rang. Brian's name flashed on the screen. "What the hell is this?" Brian's voice was cold when she answered, angry in a way she'd never heard before. "Who is he, Laura?" "What? I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me. Someone just sent me photos of you with another man, in bed." "How long has this been going on?" Laura's blood ran cold. "Brian, those photos aren't real. I would never cheat on you. Someone is setting me up. They look pretty damn real to me. I'm telling you they're fake. Think about it. When would I have even had time to?" "I don't know, Laura. You tell me. Maybe during one of those times you said you were too busy to see me? Maybe while I've been working my ass off trying to..." He stopped abruptly. "Trying to what?" Laura demanded. "Never mind. I can't do this right now. I can't even look at you right now." "Brian, please. You have to believe me." He hung up. Laura tried calling back, texting, nothing. Brian had completely shut her out based on fake photos that she couldn't explain and didn't understand. Who would do this? Who would go to such lengths to destroy her relationship? The answer came 2 days later from the most unexpected source. Martha, one of the long-time maids who'd worked for the Russell family since before Laura was born, pulled her aside one morning with fear in her eyes. "Miss Laura," Martha whispered urgently, glancing around to make sure they were alone, "you need to leave this house. Tonight. Don't pack anything. Don't tell anyone. Just go." "What? Martha? What are you talking about?" "I've been hearing things. Your stepmother, she's planning something terrible. I don't know all the details, but I heard her on the phone last night talking about removing obstacles and finalizing arrangements. She mentioned your name." Laura's stomach dropped. "What kind of arrangements?" "I don't know, but Miss Laura, I knew your mother. God rest her soul. And I knew your father. They would want you safe. Please, take my advice and run. Get as far away from here as you can until you can figure out what to do." Martha pressed an envelope into Laura's hands. "This is money. Cash. Enough to get you somewhere safe for a while. Promise me you'll go tonight." Laura stared at the envelope, then at Martha's terrified face. The older woman had never lied to her, had always looked out for her. "Okay," Laura whispered. "Tonight? I'll go tonight." She spent the day pretending everything was normal. had lunch with Mandy, who was unusually cheerful and kept asking about Laura's plans for the evening. Avoided phone calls from numbers she didn't recognize. She had lunch with Mandy in the sunlit dining room. Her stepmother was unusually cheerful, practically glowing as she chatted about meaningless things. But there was something else in Mandy's eyes, something that looked almost like anticipation. "So, Laura, darling, what are your plans for this evening?" Mandy asked, delicately cutting into her grilled salmon. "Meeting anyone? Going anywhere?" "No," Laura replied, forcing herself to sound bored and tired. "I think I'll just stay in, maybe watch a movie. I'm exhausted." "Oh?" Mandy's eyebrows raised slightly. "Not going out with friends? You've been so isolated lately. It's not healthy, you know." "I just need rest," Laura said, pushing food around her plate. "It's been a long few months since Dad died." "Of course, dear. Of course." Mandy's smile widened. "Well, get plenty of rest then. You never know what tomorrow might bring." The way she said it, with that particular tone, that knowing look, sent chills down Laura's spine. Laura's phone buzzed several times throughout the day. Unknown numbers. She didn't answer any of them. Didn't want to risk tipping anyone off that she suspected something was wrong. By the time evening fell, Laura's nerves were stretched to breaking point. She forced herself to eat dinner, told Mandy good night, went to her room and closed the door like it was any other night. Then she waited. Midnight. The house had finally fallen silent. Laura had been lying in bed, fully dressed for hours, watching the clock on her nightstand tick toward the moment she'd make her escape. 11:45 p.m., 11:50 m, 11:58 p.m. Midnight. Time to go. Laura's hands shook as she grabbed the small bag she'd hidden under her bed. Just the essentials Martha had told her to take. The envelope of cash, her phone, a change of clothes, her mother's locket that she never went anywhere without. She opened her bedroom door slowly, carefully, listening for any sound in the darkened hallway. Nothing, just the settling sounds of an old house at night. Laura crept down the hallway on bare feet, her shoes in her hand so they wouldn't click on the marble floors. She took the back staircase, the servants' stairs that hardly anyone used anymore, down to the ground floor. Her father's study was at the far end of the house. The keys to his old Mercedes were still in the desk drawer where they'd always been. He'd kept that car for sentimental reasons. It was the first luxury car he'd ever bought himself, back when he was just starting to make real money. Laura's fingers closed around the keys. She clutched them so tight the metal bit into her palm. Almost there. Almost free. She made her way to the garage through the interior door, not daring to go outside where security cameras might catch her. The garage was dark and musty, smelling of oil and old leather. The silver Mercedes sat in the corner where it always had, covered in a fine layer of dust. Laura pulled off the car cover, wincing at every sound it made. She climbed into the driver's seat. The leather was cold against her legs. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely get the key into the ignition. "Please start! Please, please start!" She turned the key. The engine turned over once, twice, then roared to life. Laura nearly cried with relief. She put the car in gear and pressed the button for the garage door. It began to rise with a mechanical whir that sounded deafening in the quiet night. No time for stealth now. She had to move fast. Laura slammed her foot on the gas and burst out of the garage into the cool night air. The main gate was 100 yards away. If she could just get through it before anyone realized what was happening. The gate began to open automatically as the car approached. The sensor recognized the vehicle. Laura's heart soared. She was going to make it. She was actually going to 2 a.m. Laura had been driving for nearly 2 hours, taking random turns, getting as far from her family's mansion as possible. She was somewhere on the outskirts of Los Angeles now, in an area she didn't recognize. The streets were empty at this hour, just pools of yellow streetlight punctuating long stretches of darkness. Her plan was simple: drive until dawn, find a cheap hotel where she could pay cash and not have to show ID, then figure out her next move. Maybe call a lawyer, maybe contact the police, maybe just keep running until she was far enough away that Mandy couldn't reach her. That's when she noticed it. Hit that like button if this story has you hooked. Comment what you think. Make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. and drop a comment below telling me what you think is going to happen. Trust me, you will not see these plot twists coming.